Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to wish every one of you who is watching this video happy Dasahra. And so today we are going to talk about a topic called peripheral signs of aortic regurgitation. While talking about this topic, there are two things that I would like to tell. First thing is it is very easy to understand, like what is giving rise to these peripheral signs in aortic regurgitation. That is very easy to understand. And the second thing is it some students find it difficult to remember it because there are many names and terminologies we use in association with aortic regurgitation, and this also being a popular question among the examiners. It is intended that students know this science. So some students may find it difficult to remember these signs. So here today we are going to cater for both the things. That is, first thing is you are going to have a clear understanding about what is giving rise to this peripheral signs, and also how I'm going to serve you in this session is by letting you remember them with ease and grace, so that you can reproduce the answers, without having to strain too much. So straight away we'll go into topic. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about peripheral signs of aortic regurgitation. Okay, so before we move, let's understand what happens in aortic regurgitation, and what is the mechanism behind we finding those peripheral signs. Okay, so we will need to think a little bit like what's happening. So the next slide will support you in getting a concept clear, like what happens in aortic regurgitation. Just a second. Yeah. So pulse due to aortic regurgitation or aortic incompetence. Generally, students would have come across this term called collapsing pulse or water hammer pulse. So this is not new. Okay, so let's see what happens inside this aortic regurgitation. What is giving rise to these signs? First thing is the incompetent aortic valves that are there in aortic regurgitation that gives rise to aortic regurgitation. What it causes is there is regurgitation of blood back into the ventricles during diastole. So the normal blood flow, if you remember, the function of the aortic valve is to maintain unidirectional flow from left ventricle to aorta. When these valves become incompetent during diastole, there is backflow of blood from aorta into left ventricle. That is the first thing that happens. Then what happens? Because of this regurgitation of blood, the blood now pools in the left ventricle, which increases the end diastolic volume and also the end diastolic fiber length of the cardiac muscle fibers in the left ventricle. And if you remember the Frank Starling's law, within physiological limits, higher the muscle fiber length, like stronger the force of contraction. The same way here, what happens is when there is increased pooling of blood in left ventricle, there is more force generated in the next cycle, next contraction of the left ventricle. This gives rise to more power during the next systole, more powerful contraction. Okay, and then what happens as a result? There is increased stroke volume, resulting in a stronger pulse, which will be represented in the slope of the wave and the amplitude of the wave, pulse wave that is produced. So we again recollect what happens. So there is regurgitation of blood. In the next systole, there is stronger force generated because of the increased pooling of blood in left ventricle, and then this results in a stronger pulse, stronger and a pulse which are forceful and stronger pulse with like a increase in slope and also the amplitude of this wave, the pulse wave that we can feel. So what again, one more thing that is different is though the pulse is initially stronger and forceful, it shows an immediate fall or a collapse that happens due to the diastolic runoff of the blood from aorta back into the ventricle. So during systole, the blood picks in, and then there is again diastolic runoff. So the blood that accumulated in left ventricle gave a strong force, but because of incompetent aortic valve, the blood again re-enters, regurgitates into the left ventricle, giving rise to a collapsing pulse. Okay, so this word collapsing pulse, what gives rise to collapse, that word, I think that gets clear now. So just again reiterating it, there is aortic valve incompetence, so there is regurgitation of blood into left ventricle, a stronger contraction from the left ventricle, which gives rise to a stronger and forceful pulse. Okay, and now that pulse is not sustained, it is ill sustained because of sudden collapse due to diastolic runoff of the blood back into the ventricle. Okay, and for you to get a hold on other types of pulses, there is another video which is there, Discover People's Pulse, in the same channel. I recommend you go to that to get an idea of what happens in other kinds of pulses. Today, our discussion is restricted to the pulse that we can get in aortic regurgitation and its peripheral signs. Okay, so now if you can imagine this as a normal pulse wave, like you have an ascending limb peak and a descending limb, right? If you want to compare this to a pulse of aortic regurgitation, so you see a stronger forceful pulse generated. So you can see the ascending limb, which is having a higher amplitude. The peak is at higher amplitude, and also the slope. You can see like it is not consistent with the normal slope. It is a little faster. The rise of the limb is faster, whereas the descent is even like like it's a collapse. You see like rising pulse and suddenly it collapses. So if you can look at distant, come little distant and watch this pulse, you can see the ascending limb to be more slant and descending to be like almost like just like perpendicular. So this direct fall is given by the diastolic runoff of the blood from aorta into the left ventricle. So this is the comparison between normal pulse and a pulse due to aortic regurgitation. Okay, so now let's get into the topic today. Given that we have understood like what happens in the aortic regurgitation and what is the impact of that on the pulses, so what are these peripheral signs of aortic regurgitation? So now we understood aortic regurgitation, what happens, right? So the peripheral signs are the signs that you can now visually see or palpate or auscultate. Okay, whatever the thing that's happening with pulses, if you can see like there will be exaggerated movements, that will be something which can be visible, exaggerated than normal pulse. That's something called visible, right? And then if you touch that, you can get a estimate of the like forceful contraction and sudden collapse. So it will be a palpatory finding. And also in extreme forces, the normal laminar flow of arterial blood can change into turbulent flow, which on auscultation can give rise to murmurs or bruise. Okay, so these peripheral signs of aortic regurgitation are inspectory, palpatory, or auscultatory findings that is produced due to aortic regurgitation that can be picked up during general physical examination. Yeah. So now, yeah, as I said, like I'm going to serve you by making you remember stuff. So if you look at the this slide and the names that are there, lighthouse sign, I'm going to read this one by one just to make these names familiar to you before we get into how to get this inside our memory. Lighthouse sign, Becker's sign, Landolfi's sign, Demusset's sign, Quincke's sign, Muller's sign, dancing carotids, or Corrigan sign or pulse, or Waterhammer pulse, Locomotor brachialis, Rosenbach's sign, Gerhard's sign, Traub's sign, Durosi's sign, Durosi's murmur. We will be distinguishing what is the difference between them. Hill's sign, Shelly's sign, and main sign. I guess like there may be some signs you may find here and there apart from these, but what I've taken on is something which is very common and which it is good to know, and also like you should know. Like some questions that examiners may think like you should know this or it's good to know. This encompasses all those commonly asked terminologies and the signs. Okay, so I am limiting to this, but my promise is again you will walk out of this video having remembered these things, and you may have to not spend again much time and strain too much to recall them again. So that is my promise. So let's get into the business of punching these answers into your memory. So for this, I'm going to use my friend, a boxer friend of mine, who is going to help you remember this better. Okay, so I'm going to I'm going to tell about him to you so that you get to know about him better before you get these things in your memory. First thing is what you see is a lighthouse. So we have a lighthouse sign. You will be like no, side by side. You're going to correlate with the signs that we're going to discussing with the pictures that I'm going to show. So this is a lighthouse sign. So you see a lighthouse here. If you are watching this lighthouse from one side, you will see the rotating lights giving you flash and dull, flash and dull, flash and dull, right? Okay, so that is what you need to remember in the lighthouse. This slide, just remember the lighthouse and how it will look if you're watching the lighthouse like from one side. You will see a light, rotating light. It's flash and dull, flash and dull. So like that. Next thing is you see the stream of water here running through a channel inside this land. Okay, so I want you to remember two words here: the land and the stream. Well, in literary word, I am using another word called beck. So this stream is also called as beck in English. Okay, so the two words I want you to remember is the land, the opening in which like there is a opening in this land which gives rise to a beck. Okay, so land and beck, and these are ear, a human ear. And if you want to compare it to alphabetical letter, the D will be something which is similar to the the ear, the letter. So that is what you're going to remember out of this slide. Next thing is, this is the symbol that we use to draw heart, like popular symbol to draw a heart among kids. So this, if you compare to the English letter, the closest that can be is M. I'm using the letter M with this heart. Just bear with me. We are doing the work to get this thing in our memory. Okay. And then if you look at a human mouth, this uvula, okay, so gives rise to a shape of em. You can see another em here, right? This uvula. And if you look at the hole, it can give rise to a letter O, but there is no sign in the peripheral sense of aortic regurgitation which starts with O. So it has Q. So I'm going to use this to remember the letter Q. So there is a M and Q and the mouth. Okay, this is what you need to remember from this slide. And this is a boxing glove. Again, I'm going to compare this to a letter Q, alphabet Q. That's what my boxer friend uses. Okay, and my boxer friend also knows dancing. But if you look at these dancing dolls, the only movement that is possible is at the neck. The same way my boxer friend only dances using his neck. So you need to remember the dancing and the neck. And like he's very strong, his arms are as strong like a hammer. So what you're going to remember here is the hammer, a strong forearm like a hammer. And my friend also takes passion in biking. So one of the thing that most bikers have is tattoos, as shown on this. So you're going to remember my biker friend, like the boxer friend who also likes biking, and he has tattoos. And well, he likes roses and he likes giving roses to friends. So if you look, rose and girls go hand in hand. Though, like in most of the movies, it's like girls like roses. What is given to a girl as a gift is roses. So I just want you to remember the here from the slide, the rose, red rose, and the girl. Well, my friend also has gun, AK-47 like model. Well, I'm not interested in his gun. I'm interested in comparing it to the sign. So what I see here is the letter T and D within those gun. Okay, you see the gun, a part of it I can see and relate it to as a letter T and D. Okay, so my friend has a gun, I have a stethoscope. He has very strong legs and he tries to climb, like big hills. So you're going to look at the hill and the leg here in this slide. He has strong legs and he climbs hill. Well, he has a secret shell which he doesn't give me. Many times the secret shell, I don't know what is there inside, if there is anything. So something about the shell that you can't see, or it is not easily seeable. Well, this is the you are seeing something, but he's not my boxer friend. He's the opponent of my boxer friend who cries Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. It again, which means please come and help me. That's the meaning for the Mayday, which is a distress call given by Marines and pilots in the event of some danger that they sense. Okay, so this is what we got to remember. I'm going to again run through slides again. Just bear with me. What we are doing is trying to get all these signs inside the memory so that you remember for this, like this remembering these signs are done for once for all, so you don't have to keep giving more time to remember this again and again. You watch this video, after the video you need to be like, yeah, I know now the signs and I remember them. So lighthouse, the land and the beck, the ear, which looks like the letter D, heart, which looks like the letter M, the uvula and the mouth, which gives you the letter M and Q, the boxing gloves, which again you can compare to the letter Q, the dancing necks, the forearm, which is strong like a hammer. He is like his bike, and he's a biker and has a tattoo, rose and a girl, AK-47. But we are interested in the letter T and D, and he has strong legs and likes climbing hill. A shell, which is like a secret which we don't know, and the opponent who cries Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Okay, so we are going to now get a little bit of literature part before we get the memory thing strong. So peripheral signs of aortic regurgitation. Let's go one by one. The lighthouse sign. So just like you stand in one place and you look at the lighthouse and you see the light flashing and getting dull, from one side, what you will see in a patient with aortic regurgitation is alternating blanching and flushing. That is alternating pallor and reddening of the forehead. Okay, and remember all these things are explained by rapid flow and sudden withdrawal of the blood. So too much of flushing and then blanching of the vessels because of diastolic runoff of the blood away from the aorta into the left ventricle. So same thing is just peripherally manifested in the other arteries, which gives rise to these things. So lighthouse sign, alternating blanching and flushing of the forehead. Becker's sign, we said the stream. Remember land and Becker's sign is visible pulsation of the retinal arterioles. And Landolfi's signs, I'm going to take this together and let you remember this. Landolfi's sign, constriction and dilatation of the pupil. So if you see the land or the pupil through which you can see the rest of the vessels, the retinal vessels, the same way the land with the channel inside was giving rise to a stream. Within the Landolfi sign, you see the pupil, and if you look into the pupil through the central aperture, you will find the Becker sign, which is visible pulsation of retinal arterioles. And also you see the retinal arterioles run like a stream, like you can compare it to multiple stream running inside the eyes. So the Becker or the stream, visible pulsation of retinal arterioles. Landolfi sign, constriction dilation of pupil. De Musset sign, bobbing of the head with each heartbeat. So you remember the letter D and Musset. Okay, I have one more slide which will let you remember these again. So just bear with me. Bobbing of the head with each heartbeat. It is like the aorta is getting pumped so much of blood with strong force that head actually comes forward, flexes forward, and then back with each heartbeat. Okay, and this you can compare it to like as if the ears were trying to listen to the heartbeat like this. Okay, so each heartbeat is producing the flexion of the neck, and okay, and then drawing of the neck to the position as if like the ears are trying to hear the heartbeat, like with each heartbeat. Okay, that will be de Musset sign. Then there is Quincke's sign, which is alternating blanching and flushing seen on light compression of the lips or the nail bed, which again, like the diagram will help you to remember for long term, just familiarizing you with the terms and what they mean. Muller sign, the other M inside the uvula, you remember? So the visible pulsations of the uvula is called Muller sign. Okay, so we completed all the signs in the face till now. So you look at that lighthouse sign or the Becker sign and Landorf sign in the eyes. And then you have Demoset sign, which is the whole of the head flexing. And then the Quincke sign, which is the lips. And the nail bed, we will come later, but in the face, it is at the compression of the lips, causing this alternating flushing and blanching. And Muller sign, which is within the mouth, the uvula. So you see, all these signs are like above the neck in the head. So let's go to the next, which is like below them. So dancing carotids, remember the picture, the boxer friend knows only dancing at the neck. So dancing carotids or Corrigan signs or pulse or water hammer pulse. This is a rapid and forceful distension of the arterial pulse. Remember, too much of flushing of the arteries and with a quick collapse felt at the carotid artery and radial artery. Well, there is little bit of difference that you need to know about the Corrigan's pulse and sign or the Waterhammer pulse, which have said at the end of the today's presentation. Next is locomotor brachialis. So one of the things that we use for locomotion is the bike, which my friend uses. Like he's a biker, he likes moving in his bike. So what you will get to see in peripheral sign to compare is um, the brachial artery, which has become like tortuous because of too much of flow and like flushing and then blanching. So it has become tortuous, and the pulses can be seen prominently in such patients in the brachial artery. So his arm, you will see a brachial artery which is um, tortuous and moves. So you can see the moving locomotor brachialis artery, moving locomotor brachial artery. That is what literally it translates to, right? Then the Rosenbach sign. So you remember the letter rose, and it is red. So the organ in our body, which can be like liver is red, rose is red, liver is red, right? And you need to remember this with Gerhardt sign, and the letter you need to remember is the G. And this means there is pulsation of the spleen. So Rosenbach sign is hepatic pulsation. Gerhardt sign is pulsation of the spleen. See, in many times when we are answering as a medical student, liver and spleen go hand in hand. Like which are the part of reticular endothelial system? Like you will be sorry, I would replace that something. Which are the vital organs in the abdomen? You would say liver, spleen, and what are the organs affected in liver disease? You would say liver and spleen. So your where is the extramedullary hematopoiesis happening? You would say liver and spleen. So you will be using this liver and spleen together, like the way we use rose and girls. For the girl, you can take the letter G. So Rosenbach sign and Gerhardt sign. Rose is red, given to girls. Gerhardt signs G. Though we are just using this analogy to just for remembrance. Okay. Again, there is a picture which will let you know and remember this for a long time. We are just building all the things so that you can get the picture in one shot. Okay. So Rosenbach sign and Gerhardt sign. Next is peripheral signs of aortic regurgitation. So till now, whatever you saw now, that is these are signs which are below the neck and above the legs. So you saw dancing carotids, which is like the neck, locomotor brachialis, the arm, Rosenbach sign, and Gerhardt sign, which is the liver and spleen. Okay, so now let's look at what are the signs that can see in legs. These are trop sign, the letter T. You remember it was AK-47, so it's a pistol shot. You can relate to that gun here. So what trop sign means is they are systolic and diastolic sounds heard over the femoral artery, and they are of the nature of pistol shot like sounds. So you use your stethoscope and you'll hear pistol like sounds without doing anything. You're just going to keep the stethoscope on the femoral artery and you're going to hear pistol shot sounds during systole and diastole. That is called trop sign. Now Durose's sign and Durose's murmur. Little bit of distinguishing here required. So Durose's sign, you're going to use the bell and you're going to hear for both systolic and diastolic bruit. So what is the difference between trop sign and Durose's sign is, in trop sign, you just keep the stethoscope and hear for the sounds, which are like pistol shot like sounds, right? In Durose's sign, you're going to use the bell of the stethoscope and you're going to compress the artery by gradually applying some pressure. And then you're going to hear for systolic and diastolic bruit. Well, the proximal compression, distal compression, all those things I will explain at the end of the presentation again, which it needs a little bit of detailed explanation and I will do that for you. Durose's murmur, again, it is different from Durose's sign. Durose's murmur, just remember, it's like mostly the D parts. The diastolic murmur heard with diaphragm of the stethoscope when distal pressure is applied. So again, the distal pressure, proximal pressure, all those things I will make you understand. But in this slide, these are three signs in legs. Looks same at the femoral artery, but are different. Trop sign, just keeping the stethoscope. Durose's sign and murmur, you're going to apply some pressure and elicit the sounds, but there is some differences which I'll tell you at the end of the presentation. Next is the hill sign. My boxer friend has strong legs and he likes climbing hills. So this is where we were saying about. Let me read this for you. In healthy subjects, systolic blood pressure is normally 10 to 20 millimeter mercury higher in the lower than in the upper extremities. Correct? So popliteal systolic blood pressure exceeding brachial systolic blood pressure more than 20 milliliter mercury is called Hill sign. More than or equal to 20 milliliter mercury is also is called as Hill sign and is believed to be a positive indicator of aortic regurgitation. Well, this is what you will find in literature most commonly. Okay, but this is not very specific, and not many literatures recommend this as a strong definition. You may find some literature saying this is the most sensitive test, most specific test, or totally saying it's against this. Like this is not at all useful. So you'll find literature supporting and against be like this sign. So that's what. So and some authors have used the this critical value as 30 millimeter mercury, 40 millimeter mercury, or 60 millimeter mercury to increase the sensitivity of this Hill sign. But still, it is little something which is not like proven like yeah you should use this Hill sign as the classic indicator of aortic regurgitation. Not a strong evidence for that. Okay, and the other two peripheral signs, which in the next picture that I'm going to show, these two signs are not shown. Remember Shelly sign, he keeps it secret. So what it means, Shelly sign is it's the pulsation of the cervix, uterine cervix in females. So alternating blanching and flushing that can be seen in a mucosal structure like the uterine cervix. That is what Shelly's means. A secret boxer friend. That's what I was. It's not easily seeable, and this sign is not shown in the figure that I have presented next. Main sign closer to the word Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. So calling for help. So main sign is a decrease in diastolic blood pressure of 15 millimeter mercury when the arm is held above the head. It's like the my boxer and his opponent like seeing my boxer friend. He says like raising his hand says Mayday, offer me help. Okay, so that's what you can remember out of this. The main sign is the decrease in diastolic blood pressure for more than 15 millimeter mercury when the arm is held above the head. Okay, again about this sign, it is not specific, and it is also said that in adolescents or young with no aortic regurgitation also this sign is positive. So it is not taken as a specific sign of aortic regurgitation, but it may show up as a question to you. Okay, and this is a diagram that I was talking about. So this has the whole of the thing. If you want to take a screenshot, this is the thing that you need to take. You see the lighthouse sign. I'm going to go one by one so that you remember the picture and the what we were trying to get into your memory. Lighthouse sign, you see the lighthouse here, alternating flushing and blanching of the forehead. Becker sign and Landolfi sign. Within the eyes, you see the land and the beck, right? Land with the channel, that's the pupil, alternating constriction dilation, and the beck or the stream, that is the Becker sign. Democyte signs, the D and the M, like every heartbeat, the head tries to flex as if the ears are trying to listen to the heartbeat. That is Democyte sign, letter D and letter M. Okay, and then there is Muller sign M, which is the the pulsatile uvula. Okay, which is told each time it pulsates the uvula, that is the Muller sign, and the Quincke sign, which is the lips. So you slightly compress the lips with the nail bed, compress the lips with the glass slide, and you will see alternating flushing and blanching. That will be the Quincke sign on the lips. Also, you can see the Quincke sign, the boxer glove here, okay, which is in the nail beds. So you press the nail bed and you will see alternating flushing and blanching of the nail beds. That is the Quincke sign here. Okay, so this is the sign which is within the head. Then we came to the next slide, which was dancing carotids. So you see two dancers forming the neck here, dancing carotids. The biker friend who has tattoos on his arm. So this is locomotor brachialis. So you see it's a visible moving brachial artery. And then you have this Rosenbach signs, red rose close to the girl, Gerhardt sign. And then you see here the hammer. It's a water hammer pulse, just representing that in this picture. And then the signs in the leg, which is Trops sign, Durosis sign. Well, Trops for T here, and then Durosis with the trigger. Hill sign, strong legs, right? And these are the signs of peripheral aortic regurgitation. One thing that is not represented in Durosis term is Durosis murmur is not written here, but you will find it like same. The same location is same. And the other two signs that were not mentioned, that are not mentioned here, is Shelly sign and main sign, as presented earlier. So before we finish the presentation, few things. little detailing which will ground you with more concepts and also help you remember some interesting things also. So the similarity between this palpable characteristic of the pulse, like where in aortic regurgitation you have a stronger upbeating pulse in the initial part and then sudden collapse. This was compared to a water hammer toy by Thomas Watson. Okay, he was the first person who compared this peripheral signs of aortic regurgitation, the palpation characteristics of this pulse to water hammer. Okay, and that then the word Corrigan pulse, which was already in use, was slowly being substituted with Watson's pulse. Because of his comparison with the of this pulse to water hammer toy. Okay, so that was being substituted as Watson pulse. But currently, two things happen. Corrigan's pulse or sign usually means the abrupt distension and quick collapse of the carotid pulse, which is the neck only. Okay, and the Waterhammer pulse is used for the similar characteristics in other peripheral arteries, like the radial artery. So if someone asks you to demonstrate Waterhammer pulse, is going to like the exam will ask you to demonstrate Waterhammer pulse, but you will be observing Corrigan's pulse or sign. Okay, so a little bit of detailing about what is this water hammer toy. You must have all seen a test tube. Now consider like you have a test tube with one opening, right? Even that was sealed. Like there are no opening in the test tube, which is like sealed from either ends, and it has like half the tube is filled with water and other half is vacuum, like no air also. So if you now imagine what's going to happen when you tilt the test tube from one side to the other, you will be able to visualize the whole of the water column, because there is no air, no bubble, nothing like that is going to be there. So the whole water column will uninterruptedly move to the other side and hit the other side of the test tube, and this will produce a sound which is similar to a hammer. The clink will be like a hammer hitting a the metallic surface, right? Now this is what the comparison was made to, the water hammer toy and the palpable characteristic of aortic impulse. If you look at the test tube, you turn it, it feels like it will hit and then move, right? If you keep tilting it one hand to other hand, you will see the whole column will hit and move. Okay, so this is the why the comparison between water hammer toy and the peripheral signs of aortic regurgitation happened. So now, okay, out of all these things, what you need to remember, Corrigan sign or pulse is used to describe the carotid artery here, and the Waterhammer pulse is used to describe the peripheral sign like a radial artery. Okay, and a little bit about the Durosis sign, Durosis murmur. I told you I will, before we end the presentation, I will make that mechanism clear to you. Okay, so few bullets for you to remember. So in arteries, there is laminar flow. The blood in the arteries flow in a laminar way. Like this is the laminar flow, parallel to each other, not striking. And you see this is usually representation of a laminar flow. Now, kinking of the artery produces turbulence distal to compression. So if you kink the artery here somewhere, like if you press the artery here, or if there is a occlusion in the artery, which can happen sometimes, so the turbulence will be produced beyond this, right? So this will produce turbulence distal to the compression. So if I press it here with the unidirectional flow like this, the turbulent flow will be produced distal to the compression. Now, if you place the stat, then you'll hear a brew, which is due to the turbulent flow. So if the compression has happened here, till here it is laminar flow. Beyond this compression, there will be turbulent flow. And if you keep a stethoscope here, you will hear bruit produced by this turbulent flow. Okay, this is some basic for you to understand the Rosie's sign and murmur. Okay, so now let's see what happens in patient with aortic regurgitation. In a patient with aortic regurgitation, there is a bidirectional flow. You remember there is during diastole, the blood is going off from the aorta into the left ventricle back again. So this forward pushing and backward flow of the blood happens. And in severe cases, this can be translated even to the peripheral arteries like femoral artery, where the flow becomes bidirectional. Like that is during systole, the blood moves, from away from the heart, and during diastole, the blood moves towards the heart. Okay, so this reverse of blood flow is what is responsible for these signs. So what happens as a result when the artery is now compressed? Now consider the same, like you are compressing the artery here. The turbulence is observed distal to the compression. Like if you press the artery here, distal to the compression during systole, because the flow is happening from here to here. You put a compression here. During systole only blood is moving this side. right? During diastole, it was either stopping, so there was no turbulence produced, in the normal artery. But in the artery which has bidirectional flow, if you compress here during systole, the turbulence is produced distal to the compression. Well, because the flow is now bidirectional and it is towards the heart during diastole, if you maintain the compression during the diastole, the turbulence is produced proximal to the compression. So I hope you're understanding what happens here. So if you press a vessel with bidirectional flow, okay, like consider the compression is here, so that systole will produce turbulence beyond the compression, like distal to the compression. And during diastole, the flow which is coming back will produce turbulence proximal to the compression. Okay. So as a result, when the artery is compressed, turbulence is observed distal to the compression during systole, yeah, and proximal to the compression during diastole. Okay, so let me give a little bit more about this. So how it shows up. See, if you look at trop sign, you just keep the artery, like the stethoscope over the artery, and you hear pistol shots sounds. Normally, over a femoral artery, if you keep, you don't hear any turbulence. But in arterial regurgitation, you may start to hear that, because the turbulent flow is proportionate to the force of flow also, like the speed of the flow. The velocity of the flow is increased in arterial regurgitation. Again, due to Frank-Starling's law, you remember the stronger force contraction. The blood flow is faster, more velocity. That causes more turbulence. Any laminar flow with more speed can become turbulent. So that produces trop sign, which is like both systole and diastole. The bidirectional flow, which is rapid and with high velocity, produces trop sign. Now with Durosis sign and Durosis murmur, consider like if between the systolic and diastolic, you have to choose one. What is more specific for arterial regurgitation? That would be diastolic, because anyway, other conditions that can cause increased velocity of flow can also produce systolic murmur. But what gives the bidirectional, the evidence for bidirectional flow or the diastolic runoff would be the diastolic backflow. So the diastolic murmur which you get in Durosis murmur, by diastolic murmur in Durosis murmur is more specific for arterial regurgitation. Yeah. And then Durosis sign is like it is an add-on. Now during diastole also there is bruit produced, and during systole also bruit is produced. Okay, after kinking, that would be Durosis sign. So if I have to now put a difference to each of them, trop sign, you are not applying any pressure. You're just going to keep the stethoscope. Durosis sign and Durosis murmur, you're going to apply gentle pressure. What happens in Durosis murmur is you hear only the diastole. Like the bruit is heard only during diastole. The murmur is heard only during diastole. In Durosis sign, both systole and diastole bruit is heard along with you applying the pressure. So difference between trops and Durosis sign was in trops and Durosis both you hear systolic and diastolic bruit, but in trops you just listen by just placing the stethoscope. In Durosis you will apply a compression. You will kink the vessel and then try to listen for the sound. Durosis sign and Durosis murmur difference. Durosis sign, there is sound produced both during systole and diastole. Durosis murmur, sound is produced only during diastole. Okay, so that's the end of our presentation. I hope that this will help you recall these signs for a longer term, and even if you forget some things, maybe just a quick glance on this video or the picture will help you recall better. So I'm going to stop sharing the slide now. So I will be here for the few seconds to see if there are any questions. Um, well, before we complete this presentation, or I see a question here, I would like to share something about this video that we made today. This is a part of our book called Doctor's Assistant, Your Partner in Clinical Practice. So I'm going to request you to use this as a companion for the literature that is there in the book, as well as the video that is there. These two are going to be used as complementary. There are some details which I could present here because the medium that we have, some detailing, the way of presentation will be a little different in the video presentation than in the book. The same way, the amount of stressing and the detailing that I can do in the book is not possible through videos. So I recommend you using both the video and this topic in the text to your as complementary. That's what I would request. And if you want to purchase and know how to purchase it, in the link description I'll be posting a link through which you can purchase the Kindle version of the book, And in case if you wanted the printed version, then please join our group Discovery Medicine and get in touch with me. And I will tell you how you can get the printed version of the book, the hard copy. Okay, so thank you everyone. Whenever you're choosing to watch this video, I really appreciate you liking this way of teaching. I hope efforts like this will help students deal with exams better and with less stress. That's the main intention for all these things that I'm doing. Okay, so thank you. Have a pleasant day. See you later with another video. Bye.